It's 4 a.m., an unearthly hour to be going on a drive. But for what I'm about to do, it's the perfect time to leave the sleeping city of Bengaluru. Yes, this is no ordinary early morning drive, but a drive that I hope will be historic and set a record. Not just any record, but the most coveted of them all, a Guinness World Record title. I'm attempting to break the current Guinness World Record for the longest journey by an electric car on a single charge. The target to beat is 916.74 kilometers. My weapon of choice is the Mercedes-Benz EQS 580. The aim is to reach Mumbai or thereabouts. Will I be able to break the record? Well, cross your fingers and wish me luck. But first, the Guinness witnesses fill out their paperwork and seal off the charging port before I get going. Starting very early in the morning from Bengaluru was indeed a good decision. Minimal traffic on the way out ensured I didn't have to come to a standstill too often, saving precious battery charge which I was trying to preserve as far as I could. Of course, leaving early had a bit of a disadvantage too, having to use the headlamps before sunrise. Though, in hindsight, it was a good trade-off compared to leaving during morning rush hour in India's IT capital. I've finally made my way to the highway and now I'm out of Bengaluru city. Now hoping the traffic on the highway remains clear too. In case you were wondering why use a luxury sedan for a record attempt, well, the EQS 580 was chosen for a good reason. With a claimed ARAI range of 857 kilometers from its 107.8 kWh battery, this was the only electric vehicle in India with the highest certified range. With a drag coefficient of just 0.20, the EQS is also the most aerodynamically efficient car. As important as it was to choose the right car for the record, it was equally important to choose an optimal route, and so we chose the route starting from Bengaluru to Mumbai, which would largely take us through the Golden Quadrilateral. What I really like about Karnataka highways is that they are really well maintained. The section that I'm driving on today has beautifully marked lanes on either side and very little traffic, so I can sit in one lane and cruise comfortably. Speaking of comfort, I'm glad I'm doing this tedious drive in a comfortable car like the EQS. Though I did not have the luxury to indulge in the creature comforts of the EQS, I was happy that the seats and the ride quality were comfy enough for me to drive really long hours without getting tired. In fact, the EQS lets you maximize range and helps in switching off multiple features and activating Eco Driving Mode. This was my plan for the record attempt as well. I ensured that I didn't exceed the 5% power input on the instrument cluster and kept the accelerator input to as minimal as possible. I also found a sweet spot for the EQS was between 50 and 60 km per hour, where the EQS would coast smoothly without demanding too much power input. Another important thing to keep in mind is to anticipate the terrain properly. For example, if you're approaching an uphill section, it's better to start accelerating gradually to mitigate the climb, and as soon as you reach the top of the climb, you start lifting off and coast downhill slowly. This technique is also called pulse and glide. No matter how well you plan these drives, there will always be a curveball thrown at you. In my case, there were multiple. And the weather has suddenly turned. I did anticipate rain on the way, but this is a bit too much. I hope there's no standing water up ahead which will add resistance to the tires, eating into the much crucial range. Now, while hypermiling, you need to ensure that your car is able to coast as freely as possible, and for that to happen, you need to switch off the regen mode completely. However, using regen modes is of equal advantage when used smartly. Similarly, when you're driving on a long, gradual slope where the car gathers a lot of speed on its own, it's best to use the regen mode, which will apply the brakes for you and also regain a lot of energy, resulting in additional range. The EQS offers 3 levels of regen. So depending on the speed I was able to gather on declining terrain, I would use the most optimum mode: strong regen for gradual declines and normal regen for shorter declines.
I've consumed exactly 50% of the battery charge, and the distance that I've covered is 470 kilometers. The distance to go that the EQS is showing right now is 475 kilometers with the remaining 50% charge. Now if I add these two up, it definitely will cross the 916.74 target that we are aiming for. But will we be able to cover that? There's only one way to find out: by driving it all the way. So let's wait and watch. A little over 500 kilometers and I've made it to Belgavi. I've been driving for the past 10.5 hours and I am haggard.
The run today was decent, but the rain and traffic was slightly heavier than anticipated. 10.5 hours of non-stop driving and 515.2 kilometers later, I was left with 44% battery charge and 418 kilometers of estimated range on the EQS and took a break for the night.
Hopefully we get a clear sky tomorrow and a smooth run into Mumbai. It's 6:50 AM at Belgavi today and we are ready to start driving towards Mumbai for our final push. Let's hope luck is on our side today.
Spoke too soon, I guess, because as luck would have it, I was astounded to see the never-ending road construction and diversions between Belgavi and Karad. Multiple speed breakers, potholes and some sections which did not even have blacktop on it. And what was followed was much worse.
An absolute nightmare on a record run like this. The last thing anyone wants is a flat, but here we have it. I've got a flat. I have no choice but to change this tire and use the space saver and carry on. Final few kilometers remaining to reach Mumbai, or maybe closer to Mumbai. Fingers still crossed. So we've just finished the long downhill section at the Khambatki Ghat, and we started out with 150 kilometers when we entered the downhill section. And now at the base, we've already recouped 5 kilometers and the range from 150 has gone up to 155 kilometers. I can definitely use those extra 5 kilometers here. I really don't know once it goes on lower percentage how the car is going to behave, whether it'll slow down, whether it'll let me drive fast, whether it'll let me use the entire range. I'm really not sure. But I'm really hoping that it crosses our target distance. So let's hope for the best. This is really stressful. 1% SOC, 13 kilometers, distance to empty, 903.9 kilometers covered. We're passing Lonavala on the expressway, hoping that we meet the target of 916.74 kilometers. In fact, cross it to be able to claim the new record. And there you have it, we've crossed our target. I think we've achieved what we wanted to achieve. I think we've bagged the new Guinness World Record for the longest journey by an electric car on a single charge. Now with the remaining SOC, I'm just going to drive and see how far we can really make it and set the bar that much high. The SOC, believe it or not, has gone up to 3% and the distance to empty is now at 23 kilometers. Let's see how far we can take this thing. And we've run into a jam at the JNPT road. Covered 948.5 kilometers. 0 kilometers to go on distance to empty and 0% charge. I don't know how far this thing will go, but we'll keep driving. And I think we'll have to pull over. It says stop immediately, drive will be deactivated. Let's just park it safely on the side. The final few meters, whatever it drives, I'll just let it drive. So this is where the EQS has finally run out of charge. 949 kilometers is what I was able to eke out on a full charge.
And what an incredible 48 hours it has been. Full of adventure, a whole lot of stress, but a Guinness World Records title in the process. Definitely priceless.